Hey guys, I want to thank you really quickly for tuning in to another episode. This week I get to sit down and talk to my good friend Shirley Tittermary. Now, because of the nature of the discussions that we have in this episode, we do venture into some controversial territory. If you would like to keep the conversation going, I would love it if you stop by my Instagram. Come by, let me know what you think after the episode. And if you're not aware, I do have a Patreon now where we are kind of doing a little bit of a virtual book club. I'm really excited. It's the first time that we're doing this, and we're starting with a book on law of attraction, on how to start attracting and manifesting the things in our lives that we want so we can really be intentional about creating our lives. So if you want to check that out, shoot me a message, let me know, I can get you the link, or you can find it on patreon.com/binky_bell. All right, let's get into today's episode. All right, hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today I'm here with Shirley Tittermary. She's my very good friend from Instagram, and we have had a lot of conversations in our DMs about the pressure that women have to earn an income if you're a stay-at-home mom. And she has some really good personal insight on this, as she's experienced like kind of a lot of ends of the spectrum. And I wanted to bring her on today so that she could share her experience, and we can start opening up that conversation and start having an honest conversation about the pressure that there is to validate motherhood with an income, and just kind of get her story with it, because I think it'll resonate with a lot of people. So Shirley, she's married, obviously, and she has, well, that's not obvious. She's married. She has one kid. And your son he's 7?
6.
He's 6.
Yeah.
Now, I guess let's kind of start from the beginning, and you can kind of share how it unfolded for you. Whenever you had your son, was the goal to stay home, or from the beginning, did you always want to go back to work?
No, from the beginning, my husband and I talked about it, and, he very sweetly was like, of course you're going to stay home if you want to stay home. Like, we're having a kid. There's only one person I would want taking care of our kid, and that's you. So right from the get, I knew that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, so something that I see happening all the time is we start staying home, and just, I think, through the natural process of becoming a mother, there's so many things that change, right? Like, we lose a lot of our parts of identity. Suddenly we're not going out with friends anymore. Our lifestyle changes quite a bit. There's a lot of isolation that comes in the early stages of motherhood. And then on top of that, you suddenly sometimes feel like you don't have your own money. And it plays with us mentally, right? Like, and so
Yep.
what I see happening is a lot of women start to try to find ways to earn an income, whether that be legitimate work at home businesses, MLM direct sales type things, starting their own side business. And I guess I just want to be clear from the beginning that I don't think there's anything wrong with working outside the home. I don't think there's anything wrong with earning an income, creating a business. I love entrepreneurs. I think my issue is the pressure, and I'm uncomfortable with this consistent narrative that we have as mothers, that in order to be validated, we have to be earning an income. So let's talk about you a little bit, because you've tried businesses and stuff, right? You have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to let you speak on that for a little bit.
Okay. So first of all, when I got pregnant, we lived in Philadelphia. And, so I had my husband's family, I had my friends, I had the support system, and then, so Ben was born in April, and then my husband took a promotion and we moved to Georgia when Ben was 4.5 months old.
Oh, wow.
So Yes. So we moved to Georgia, and, you know, my husband and I, honestly, like, we're rock solid. I love him. He is my best friend. And you know, when we started talking about it, you know, we looked at the schools and they looked a lot better. And, you know, obviously the houses are a lot cheaper down south. And I was like, you know what, babe, like, wherever you are, I am, let's go. So I was a new mom, and I did not realize how not having the support system was going to affect me and being a new mom. So, but we got down there, we moved into an apartment. It was great. You know, it was just me and Ben. I was still a stay-at-home mom that had never left the table, you know, and I started joining like a bunch of mom groups because I wanted to meet other moms. You know, so I'm joining these mom groups and I'm like trying to set up play dates, you know, and then all of a sudden I started getting like these invites to these like online parties, you know, where moms are selling stuff, literally anything from makeup to leggings. And, you know, and I was a new mom in a totally new place, and I didn't want to seem off-putting and not friendly. So I would join these parties, and then, you know, you always have to buy something. And when you're a stay-at-home mom, that's not something you can just do. Like, you go from having the freedom of your own money to, like, if you want to splurge, you splurge. But now all of a sudden it is one income, and money does matter, and saving money is so important that now you're invited to these parties and you want to make friends, but it feels like you make friends by buying stuff you don't need, and you can't buy the stuff because you don't make your own money. So you feel like stuck. And then you'd see, I would just scroll Facebook, like nursing, you know, and which I don't recommend. 6 years later, like, I do miss that time. Anyway, so, you know, I'm scrolling through Facebook, and all the moms who are like hosting these parties are talking about how they're making money through this, and they feel like they're finally contributing to the household.
Oof.
And that became such a trigger word for me. And I would see it everywhere, you know, like, I'm finally contributing to the household. And instead of stopping and talking to myself and being like, what does that mean? Like, I am contributing. What I'm doing is contributing. All of a sudden in my head, I was like, oh, how do I contribute? You know, like, it felt automatically, it felt like I wasn't doing enough because I wasn't bringing money home. So that's really like where it started for me. It was like, okay, so they're making money this way. It was like an MLM, and I would go down that rabbit hole, and it was always like, oh, well, you spend $200 to get this package that now you are marketing online to make money. And I was like, well, I don't have $200, you know, I don't have money to buy into these things. So then I started thinking about how I could just start a business. You know, I have a background in photography, so I started posting about doing family photos and newborn sessions and trying to make money that way. But the kicker was, I've hated photography since I graduated from photography school. You know, like, oh man, coming out of school and realizing that, you know, really the money is in photographing people. And I've just never been keen on that. That wasn't in my wheelhouse. I was not good at it, or at least in my head, I wasn't good at it. And I started resenting it. But now all of a sudden I wanted to make money, and that was my only asset.
Yeah.
I felt that was my only talent to really, you know, grind on. That sounded dirtier than I thought. You know what I mean?
You know what's funny is you mentioned like kind of the cycle of being in these groups, and you know, you want to contribute and you don't want to be the person that's like, no, that's not for me, because then that's an invitation for them to be like, well, let me show you how different this is. This is for you. And you have this pressure to buy products so you can kind of make friends. And then, you know, you say that maybe you don't have the money to buy it. And that's an invitation for them to say, well, if you want the products, but you want them at a discounted rate, I can sign you up. Or, oh, I know what it means to not have any money. That's why I do this now and I make my own money. And like
Woo!
there's no easy way to get out of that conversation without being a little bit of a dick about it.
Without being like, no. Like I'm trying to do, oh, not really right now. It's not a good time. Oh, I'd have to talk. Honestly,
Yeah.
my out started being, I have to talk to my husband.
Yeah.
Like that shut it down for some reason, you know, and I need to go ask. And then even that, like, you know, you're shutting it down, but now it's like, oh, well, now I have to ask permission for things, you know? And
and that's a weird conversation.
that's a weird, well, why do you have to ask? What do you mean? You're not your own woman?
Yeah,
You
see,
know?
that's why you need your own income so that you don't have to ask
Man.
permission to buy stuff.
It messes with you.
It really does. And there's so many layers to this. There's so many ways that it's frustrating because these things are sold as a tool for empowering women, but it's really having the opposite effect of a lot of women.
I've seen it have really negative effects on women. And you know, the kicker is because there was one time that I did, I bought like $100 worth of makeup from one of the MLMs. And so the person who connected me, I bought the makeup. Okay. Then the conversation turned to, okay, now talk to 3 friends and get them in, and you get way more money than I would have gotten just selling makeup. And I was like, whoa, like that was never talked about until after.
You know what? I had something similar happen too. I bought into Advocare, which they have since been like sued out the ass.
Oh no.
I bought into Advocare and I was so just young and unaware. I didn't even know what MLMs were. Like, was just because it's very much, you don't experience them outside of motherhood. Like, I didn't know about MLMs or anything really until I became a mom. So I was so ignorant to it that I didn't even know what was happening. So I bought in, or I was about to buy in. I didn't invest money because we didn't have money. But the person that was selling it to me was kind of like, it happened so fast where she's like, okay, so just you call your mom and I'll be on the phone and I'll show you how to get people in your downline and stuff. And I remember calling my mom and my sister and being like, hey, I bought these fucking juice drinks and now the person wants to get you on the phone. Like, and I just shut it down completely. It's so
uncomfortable.
Awkward. Yeah. And they prey on that. And I have the very unpopular kind of, I guess, controversial opinion. I don't think you can be a feminist and support MLMs because of the predatory nature of them. They prey on vulnerable women who are sitting at home with young babies and are lonely. Maybe they haven't adjusted to their postpartum body. It's predatory. It's really
icky.
It is.
And it's funny because I would talk to my like kidless friends and I'd be like, oh, I got my new like LuLaRoe leggings or whatever in the mail. And they'd be like, Lula, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? What?
Why don't
How
you just
have
buy
you not
leggings
heard
at the
of
store?
these? They're everywhere. And they're like, no, don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because everybody else is buying their leggings at the damn store.
Right. Right.
That
was like the first time that I like took a step back and I was like, wait, not everybody's in on this, you know, like this isn't in all of your Facebook groups, this isn't all over your newsfeed, and it's just very strange. Yeah, you're home and all of a sudden you're just like, you were an incubator for 9 months and now you have this little potato that poops and cries a lot and you're never sitting down, and you know, all the things you hear, well, sleep when the baby sleeps, well, clean when the baby sleeps, you know, get all of it done. And
well, and you hit on something really, really important, and it's that word contribute. contribute.
Woo.
And I've spoken before about the fact that we incorrectly try to quantify the value of motherhood by giving it monetary value. We compare it to there's these articles that say, like, what's the worth of a mother? Well, she's a chef, they make $70,000 a year. She's a chauffeur, they make $40,000 a year. And then they add up all of these career salaries, and then they're like, look, mothers are worth $1 million a year. That's how much you save. And it's like, no, you're not a chef because you're microwaving chicken nuggets. I'm not a chauffeur because I'm not driving my kids when they want to go somewhere. Like, it's not. And just by virtue of trying to put a value on it in that way, you're devaluing motherhood. Like, the refusal to acknowledge that being a mother is valuable, stay-at-home mother, and your contribution is more than enough and incredibly important. Like, we need to hold on to that and keep pushing that instead of reinforcing this idea that your contribution has to be money,
right,
if you're privileged enough to be able to stay home with one income.
And I wish that I would have had that conversation with myself. Like, I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020, and I do wish that it would have, gone differently. But also I feel like it had to go down the way it went down, because now I'm appreciative of so much more, because I tried all the roads. I did, and so, like, photography didn't work out. And then I thought, for a blip, I had joined, like, the Desire Map book club group from Danielle Laporte, and that whole spiel is, how do you want to feel? And I had in my head that I wanted to feel like I was contributing. So, coaching came up a lot in the Desire Map group. Like, everybody's trying to recruit more coaches. I don't know if they're actually coaching people. They just want to recruit you to be a coach. So, and that costed money. So I was like, whoop, I'm not doing that. I don't have any money because I'm not working, because I'm not making my own money. And
the coaching thing is interesting to me, because I think we've talked before about the fact that there's the whole coaching paradigm is you're coaching other women to be coaches who are going to coach other women.
That's like, the whole thing.
That's it. And all of them are just that. It's like they're getting all of their coaching insight from Pinterest boards. Like, it's all the same regurgitated quotes about being a boss babe and a 6-figure earner and stuff.
Financial freedom and working from a beach. And I know.
Yeah. And they talk about how, this is something that's frustrating to me, is they talk about how they have so much freedom now to be with their kids. That's the thing. They can earn an income and be with their kids. But if you know people personally, intimately, who are coaches, that they're not spending that much time with their kids, because they have to be on the computer all day. Hustle. You're always on.
Always. And that's not just with coaching. So while we lived in Georgia, we moved to, we bought a house down there, and there was an extra bedroom. And immediately I was like, that's going to be my office. Immediately. What the fuck do I need an office for? Why was that word? Just immediately I was like, I'm gonna have an office. What the fuck I'm gonna do in there? Not sure. But then a friend of mine connected me to her sister-in-law, she did the Cricut vinyl stuff for a little while, but then her big moneymaker was knitting. So after, she actually lent me her Cricut, and I had fun with that. And I was like, oh, this is it. I'm going to open an Etsy shop, and I'm going to upcycle, coffee mugs, and I'm going to make funny decals for them. And my husband was on board. He went to the Goodwill almost every Friday and would come home with like 25 mugs. And
oh my God.
Like, he was in on it. He was proud of me which I think played with me too. You know, all of a sudden he would just be like, I'm so proud of you, babe, you know? And not that I don't think he was proud of me before. I think that he saw me have something of my own.
Yeah.
And was succeeding, you know.
My husband's very much the same, just like on board, totally supportive, like even if you're not finding success or whatever. And then whenever you want to call something quits, there's still support. You can, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Like, I love that about good husbands. They're just, they're on board. They're
you're done? You don't want to do it anymore? Like, that's fine. And I fought with myself on quitting everything. Like, I gave myself a hard time, you know? But like, even if you're not coaching, when I had the Etsy shop, I joined an Etsy shop group, you know, for help and how do I do SEO and how do I market and what about emails? So now all of a sudden I have to be learning something because I don't know what I'm doing. And not only am I learning it, but I'm implementing it and I'm checking it to see if it is working. And if it isn't working, the sales aren't there. So that just means I suck and I failed. But then there would be another sale and that would just keep the cycle going.
Mm-hmm.
But I was constantly working and the hustle is real. And, you know, those who hustle get what they want, you know. And
if you haven't made it, it's because you haven't hustled the right way or hustled hard enough.
Right. You're doing something wrong. Buy my program. I'll show you how to do it right.
Yes.
I admit I bought like a Facebook marketing course, you know, because that's where all the money was, you know, Facebook marketing and running ads that may or may not work. And so it just, you know, it got to be a lot and it got to be very overwhelming. And then, you know, a couple years later, we packed up and we moved back to Pennsylvania. And at the time we were living with my mother-in-law, like while we were waiting for our house to sell in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And that was when I was like, well, I can't do anything. Ben was in like a preschool. And so I was like, okay, I'll just go back to work. So now I'm looking to actively go back to work. And I found a 9-to-5, which I thought was great. But, you know, I wasn't getting home in time to make dinner. You know, I was picking up my son really late from preschool. I was super stressed about work and I was bringing work home and it just didn't feel good, you know? So now I'm distracted for a whole nother set of reasons.
Mm-hmm. And you're hustling a lot harder in a different way.
Just in a different way, you know? So it was like, okay, working from home isn't working. And I really started to feel like only recently, and this is really sad, I think, when I think about it, because I stopped doing the vinyl and then I was just doing drop ship. And I thought that was going to be easier. Mm-hmm. I thought that because I wasn't actively making stuff, right, it was going to be easier. But, you know, when you have to drive your own traffic to your own website because it isn't a search engine, it's the same bullshit. It's the same, you know, you have to post on all of your social medias every day and it's not enough to post. It has to be engaging. Why do they want to come to you? What do you have to say? And eventually I just got to the point where it was like, I have nothing to say. I just want to make money.
Yeah.
Everything for me, I feel like everything turned out to be kind of empty because that's where it was. The desire was coming from making money. Yeah. It wasn't coming from the desire to... It
wasn't about making fun products.
It wasn't about being fun. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that was when I had, you know, Swallow Like a Lady, the mug shop. And I really backed off of that so that I could focus on my son, you know, and go back to all I ever wanted was to be a good mom and a good wife, you know? And it just like slowly got sucked out. So for me, it was about going back to basics. And that's, you know, where my focus has been. Since then, I found a part-time job that enabled me to drop Ben off at the bus stop and pick him up from the bus stop. and allotted me time to come home and make dinner for my family, because that's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
Does it make money? No, unfortunately. Nobody's going to pay me to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
But that makes my heart full. Feeding my family and taking care of them and making our house a home for them and keeping it clean and making sure everybody has clean clothes, and my husband being able to come home and sit down, because he works his ass off so that we can pay the mortgage. Like, it makes me happy to take care of them. And I just wish I would have accepted that and owned that. And
because it can be enough.
It can.
And it doesn't have to be forever. I feel like we forget how long we're going to be alive, ideally, right? Barring tragedy.
Yes.
But if we can just stop, if we're in a position and we feel pulled to stop and just be home with our family for 10 years, that's going to be a drop in the pond of our lives. It's going to be a short period of time, but the benefits that we're giving our home and our children and our marriage, I think, can be really, really huge. It's just we have this, I don't know, this weird hesitation with it, because it always comes back to, what do you do? Oh, I'm just a mom. I just stay home. I still say that. Oh, I stay home with the kids, and it's interesting that the first response is always to minimize that role. Like, oh, like I just stay home, but it's a big deal. And it's something that I think we can start taking pride in and be okay with it. And it's not, sometimes whenever we start trying to practice accepting like our roles as stay-at-home mothers, there's still a little bit, I think, for me anyways, there's a little bit in the back of my mind that it's like resignation. It's like, well, I can't do anything else, so I'm just going to learn to be okay as a mom. And then I think for me, what happened was I got to where I was able to actually be proud of it and then really learn the significance of it and how important it can be. What's interesting about like your story and the stories of so many people is that we focus on the money, but we aren't realizing if the money is the focus, let's follow that train of thought. The money is the focus. We need to bring money in. We want to earn our own money. But if you run the numbers, we're spending a lot of money on supplies and marketing and courses, and we're bringing no money in. So it's like, okay, is it really about the money? Maybe we misjudge that. Or is it about something else? Are we looking for a purpose? Are we trying to find a new identity as wives and mothers? Like, what's really going on?
I think it's all of it. Yeah. I think that especially after, because you don't know how motherhood's going to affect you until you do it. It's just, that's what it is, and I spent a lot of time, like I loved the newborn stage, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't know what they want. I don't know what they want. And that was part of the puzzle for me, is like, once you figure it out and you've like calmed that baby down and now you can just have super snuggles, you're like I did this. This is great, And then as Ben got older and it got to be a little more challenging, while he was challenging age appropriately, I was hustling. So now I have this juxtaposition of, when he was a newborn, he needed me a lot. I was there. And then he started to get a little more independent. And I thought that I could pull back and focus on a hustle.
Yes.
But that's not the case. Like, they still need you. And so I would get frustrated at him needing me because I needed to be here to hustle to make money. So that really fucked with me, and it made me very angry and, very short fused. And like, that's probably my biggest regret is he still needed me, you know. He was walking, and yes, you know, he was starting to potty train, and I still needed to make him food, but like he needed me for emotional. Somebody said to me, you know, obviously our world is so big, but to them we are the world. You know, and I remember that striking a chord, but being too selfish and too caught up in what I was already doing, that I was like too far deep, and I felt like I couldn't quit. And, you know, I just think that it had consequences, you know, and it just made for arguments that didn't need to happen. And it made for miserable times when it didn't need to be miserable. But my focus was so much on the hustle that I missed out.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's really amazing that you were able to recognize this. And I feel like there's probably going to be some women who are experiencing that right now, but are going to feel attacked by it. Like it'll be,
and that's not my intent.
No, not at all. Not saying that at all. But I feel like, because, you know, whenever, like you said, like some things resonate and ring true, and somewhere in your mind, you know that somebody said the right thing, but you feel like if you just hunker down more, work harder, you'll make it work. And, you know, I still struggle with this myself, because even with my boys who are older, they, you know, kids interrupt you whenever you're doing stuff. And I still have to fight that initial reaction of like, why don't they just leave me alone? Why don't they, like, why are you know that I'm doing something, but they don't. And especially young kids. And I feel like that's a problem that a lot of women experience, is trying to run a business, start a business, do any type of money-making project at all. But we aren't thinking of the mental energy that we're putting into it. And we only have so much. So whenever life calls, when you get up from the computer and you realize that the house still needs to be cleaned, the kids still need to be taken care of and played with and interacted with, you still have to have meaningful engagements with your family, it's a really good recipe to start then saying, like, look how hard I'm working. Why isn't my husband doing more? He should be doing more. You know, I'm trying to work too. Why won't my kids won't leave me alone. They need to be cleaning their room by themselves already. And like, it's just where we get to this mode of projecting everything and blaming everybody else, when we could just take a step back and maybe reprioritize. And this is really long-winded, but I want to say again, I want to stress this, that this conversation, I think, really only pertains to people who financially can survive on one income. This has nothing to do with people who desperately need to live on two incomes. That's not this conversation.
No, I mean, when we moved back to Pennsylvania, it definitely was talked about, like the necessity of me going back to work, because it is so much more expensive, you know. And it was just, you know, it meant not buying a house not within our means, you know. It meant being realistic about what we were getting into and what we were buying and how we were going to save money, and just being smart about it, you know, because at the time I didn't know if I was going to find a job. I hadn't worked in 3 years. And my only job experience realistically was fucking retail, and I was stripping before I was going back to retail. Let me tell you, I was not doing that. And you know, I say that, and even as I say that, like, I went back to one of my old bosses and I was like, look, I need a job. And I worked at my old retail spot for like 2 days before something better came along, thank God. And
you know, sorry to cut you off
please.
there. It, like, so we're a prior military family, and I was just talking to my husband about this today, the fact that, like, so many people will say, like, no, I have to have two incomes, I have to. And we saw this on base a lot, and people will sometimes look at us, and even though we have a bunch of kids, they're like, well, you know, you're better off financially for whatever reason. But what people don't see is that, like, we're still a one car family. We have one vehicle for all of us, and that's because we don't want to, and we don't want to buy a car and then not have money to go use it to do anything,
Right.
and we've known families and couples who have a second car so that they can drive to work to make money to make the car payment so that they can go to work. And it's like there are sacrifices that you can make if your priorities, I guess, want them
Right.
to work. And it's okay. It keeps coming back to this feeling of like taking pride in being a stay-at-home mom. Like, it's okay to do that.
It's okay to do that. I know. And when Ben was really little, I would have conversations with multiple women, and I'd be like, oh yeah, like I'm a stay-at-home mom, and they're shocked, and I don't know, like, oh, I could never stay home.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, is that because you don't want to be around your kids? Do you not want to be expected to have to hold the house down? And, somebody once was like, well, I couldn't imagine not having a job to go to. And I thought about it and I said, well, I can't imagine a boss appreciating me the way my husband does. And that is what I thrive on, like bosses aren't going to appreciate me the way he does, period. And you can't put a value on that, I don't think.
And I mean, let's be real, you can be fired and replaced the next day at your job.
Oh, immediately.
But what you bring to the table in your home is irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable. And then if you're suddenly taking all of this mental and financial energy that you were investing in failed side hustles and you're putting that into your marriage, into yourself, into your kids, like, what's that going to look like? What type of home is that going to give you? And, another thing about like these side businesses and stuff is if the pressure is to make the money, then it's going to feel really urgent. Like, I have to be making at least a couple $100, like, pretty soon. And again, we forget how long we're going to be alive. So if you can focus on, like, I think a slow growth, if you have that ability, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think I told you this before, you could still focus on a slow growth of, your mugs or whatever kind of drop shipping thing you want to do. Maybe you find another talent or something. I think all of that's okay. And it would probably be more beneficial than hustling hard for 6 months and being like, well, fuck this.
And that's where I was. Since slowing down and doing it when I want to do it and not because I feel like I have to do it has made a world of difference. And if you find a good, like, I've been very lucky. I've used Threadless since like 2016, and they rolled out a wholesale program where shops all over can buy your designs to sell in their stores, and then every quarter, if it sells or whatever, like, you get a percentage.
Nice.
So it isn't really anything on my radar. There's no way to track it. And like 2 times there have been very recently where like money was like and even though I was still working part-time, I was like paying off credit cards or some dumb shit. And 2 times I've been surprised with payments from them, from this wholesale fucking program, that on a whim I got an email that was like, they want this design for their store. And I was like, sure, I don't give a shit, go have it, And now, like, that has just, it's just been like that slow growth. It was in the back of my head. I really wasn't thinking about it. And now twice it has just come at such crazy time that it has really.
See, and if you want to get weird with it, you could even say that
I want to get weird with you, James. What's up?
Well, in all of these, because I've taken them too, these business courses and stuff, they talk about flow and intention. And if you make your process easy, then you're gonna receive really easily. So the situation that you just described, it could validate that, that if you put it out there and trust that it'll happen when it needs to happen, it'll come at the right time. And even I've had situations like that. And it always comes through in a really just appropriate time. And it's just so interesting. But again, whenever the focus is the money, you're putting all of that stress into it, and it's like, well, maybe that's honestly, why it's not working.
I have heard that that money is energy, and I've watched like The Secret and stuff. I haven't read the book, I'm too lazy, but I have watched the movie. I know. And if you do believe that like money is an energy, when you are hustling hard and it does feel urgent, it almost is scaring it away. Like, can you imagine if I like called you and I was like, oh my God, I need this right now, and I need this to happen or else I'm fucked, and how am I going to do this? You would be terrified, and you'd be like, I don't know, good luck, you know?
No, seriously.
So then when you're just day at a time and like, this is what I have and this is what I'm appreciating, and then boom.
Focusing on the feeling, even with the stuff that you're creating, the designs that you're creating, you're not like, oh shit, it's Tuesday, so according to my content calendar, I have to make something that's trendy for Trendy Tuesday, and what am I going to make? And then you're putting all this stress energy into a design I talk about this too, about just content creation in general, that if you get to a point where you're following some arbitrary schedule or posting just because you feel like you have to post, what energy are we putting out behind that? And I think that really matters a lot, because of the times that I've been vulnerable and honest and I don't know, just had really good intentions with my posts, I've always reaped the benefits of that. People have been kind and receptive. But the times whenever I'm, it's Thursday, I gotta post something.
Yeah.
It's always a flop.
And you fall into that. It's easy to fall into that because everywhere you look, it's like, post consistently, and make sure you ask a question to get people engaging. And people know when you're asking a question to ask a question, and not when you really want to know.
Yeah. It's not about having an honest conversation. It's about tricking people it's about jerking the algorithm.
Yes.
But again, that's what all the coaches are selling you. And I think they don't realize how inauthentic they appear, because it's just hustle mode. And they're all saying the same things. And I'm like, if all of you guys are saying the same things, like, and then we get into the issue of these business coaches selling the 6-figure dream. Meanwhile, they're living in like apartments with no furniture. You know what I mean? I'm like, how you haven't made it yet? How are you going to coach me on how to make it if you haven't made it?
But when you are so like desperate and you have that immediate need, you're like, sure, add to cart, like something this person's going to tell me is going to make everything happen overnight and it's going to be great. And now I look back and I'm like, man, if you were just saving money.
I did. Do you know what MTurk is on Amazon? No. Have you heard of it? So Amazon has this program. I don't know if they still do it. I assume that they do, but it's called MTurk. And what you do is you make an account and you do these little jobs. They're really, really, really simple, but they're really low paying, like pennies on the dollar. But it's like inputting like you copy the totals from receipts. They give you pictures of receipts and you
Oh,
put in the totals. So really, really simple stuff, but really low paying. And I actually, I did it for a while whenever my husband got out of the military because we didn't have an income and he was fucked up. He was, he had back issues and we didn't know it at the time, but he was dealing with an addiction to his prescription medication. So it was like really dark time. And I was like, I need to make some kind of money.
right.
So I did this Amazon job and I would be in those motherhood groups of women saying, I need a little bit of extra cash. And it would be MLMs, I
Oh,
work from
yeah.
home. And then I would say, I have this way to make money, but I mean, you're only going to make $50, a week, maybe if you hit it really hard, but still that's $200 a month, and people, they didn't want to do it. Nobody wanted to do it because I wasn't telling them you're going to make $500 a week doing this,
Yep.
And it's like, there are so many people who, if they had just done like this little shitty work for a little bit, they could have, bought groceries, but they sold a TV and invested into an MLM and made nothing. So it's the dream that we're looking for, I think. And that's what, for me, I always come back to focusing on the feeling. Do I want to feel abundant in my life? Do I want to feel financially secure? How can I do that? Gratitude for the money that we do have.
Absolutely.
And something that I always teach my kids, because they have a weird relationship with money already where they're super concerned. They're like, can we buy this? Like, are we going to be broke? And I'll like grab them by the hand. I'm like, I want you to come look around our house. Like, look at all the TVs, the Xboxes. We have like 17 computers in this house. I'm like, do you think that if we were ever like gonna not be okay, we're always gonna be okay? Look at how like abundant we are. Like, and they're like, yeah, that's really true. And I want to impress that on them so much that like, even if you feel broke, like, I don't know, gratitude goes such a long way.
Such a long way. And that's one of those things that you'll say it to somebody, and if they're not ready to hear it, they're going to resent it.
Yeah, for
Because some
sure.
people are just constantly on to the next and more. Like more. And I'm like, more of what? What else do you need? What hole are you trying to fill right now?
Yes. What are you really looking for here? What I have to catch myself sometimes too. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just gonna go to Ross. And my husband's like, hey, bye. And then like I'll even catch myself. I'm like, am I just looking to buy stuff? Like, what am I?
I also, yeah, like Poshmark I've had real tough weeks with Poshmark because I justify it in my head. Well, it's not full price
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically thrifting,
Mm-hmm.
and just a couple things here and there, but so there's like definitely a couple apps that I've had to delete off my phone just because like all right, if you're opening an app to shop, like what can you do that would actually be more beneficial and just as fulfilling,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's funny, just getting into that cycle of wanting to make money, to have it, to spend. When you could just not spend the money.
You could just not spend the money. I know. I needed to hear that 6 years ago. Like,
it's so funny. But there are so many there's so many accounts. I don't know if you follow any of these like crazy women who pay off like insane amounts of debt. So like if you're looking to earn an income to pay off debt, I think that's like super awesome. I'm not there yet. Luckily we don't have a lot of debt, but there are these accounts where these women, their entire hustle is focused on zero debt. And they post like monthly updates of how much they put towards their debt. And it's so much money. They hustle in like the best way. And maybe, I don't know, maybe the universe has our back and it's like, it's keeping us from earning money at shitty side hustles because maybe we need to be here where we are at this period of time.
I'm very grateful because, you know, my husband is very frugal, let's say. So money is very important to him, not in a spending, you know, grandiose way, but very much in a nest egg, you know, and for an emergency and stuff. And like, he's getting a little crazy with it. Like, we have a house, we have a mortgage, you know, and he has like mapped out a way to do multiple mortgage payments a month. Like,
that's so cool.
It's very, you should hear him talk about it. He looks at it every single night and he gets very worked up and excited when he talks about it. It's adorable. And because I've been working part-time, not overdoing it, not underdoing it, like I found something that works for our family, like I've been able to help with that and make that a possibility, which feels really good. But I needed to meet somebody frugal because I was never taught about money growing up. We never talked about it. You know, I know at one time, like I opened the junk drawer and I found like 22 credit cards in the junk drawer. And I was like, Mom, what is this? And she shut the drawer and said, don't worry about it. You know? And I remember having to pack up real quick and leave apartments because we couldn't pay, you know? And I also remember, you know, having to move in with a dude to have a place, you know, that my mom was dating, because it was either we live with this guy or we live back at my grandmother's house where my mom had to follow her rules and she didn't want to do that. So it was very like, we were just very dependent on either my mom or a boyfriend of my mother's. So, you know, it's not that like when I stopped making my own money, all of a sudden I was dependent. And what do you hear growing up? Be independent, make your own money. Don't, you know, you don't need no man and all that stuff, you know, and all of a sudden here I am depending on a man. And it was just like something went off in my head.
Scary.
Like, you gotta change this situation. And really it depends on the man. Like nobody told you that part. It depends on the man.
If you pick the dud.
I mean, then absolutely get out of there. But
no, you hit on something so important, and we should probably, I feel like we should have this again because we should do a separate episode probably on money mindset, because the ways that we are brought up around money, those are often the biggest paradigms that need to be shifted. Because, I mean, we grew up, my parents worked very, very hard, but they were very undereducated and they got the jobs that they could. And I feel like our parents are from that generation where they started giving out credit cards like candy. I don't know anybody my age whose parents didn't file bankruptcy or have to spend many years paying off credit card debts, to the point that like it's scarred like my husband and I. We have one credit card for emergencies and that's it. We will not get credit cards. We'll pay cash for almost everything. But I feel like that's something that if you want, we should spend a couple weeks, maybe, I don't know how busy you are, but and you don't have to agree to do this, but I feel like we should have a conversation on just money mindset, because it's so important, and it fucks with your brain whenever you're a woman. And like you said, there's this whole like feminism for a really long time is like, don't depend on a man, don't set yourself up. And for many people that's very true and very valid, but like you said, you know, it depends on the man. And I feel like that's in like some controversial territory, because
I know,
I already hear it. I hear people
already I'm like, it depends on the spouse. It doesn't have to be a man.
That too. Shit. Don't come for us, all right?
No, I
We
can
mean
feel
well.
the comment section already.
I know. They're like, listen to these privileged ass women
Oh no.
in their marriages with their kids just talking about being happy homemakers. But you know what? I feel like it needs to be said. It needs to be talked about because nobody's saying that like you can have it all. Like you can be happy at home.
Well, and that's the thing is having it all is subjective. Like
Yes.
what is all to you? Is it a fucking mansion with an in-ground pool and like 5 butlers waiting to do as you know, like,
Yeah.
or is it being happy?
Yeah. And then, and maybe we have to try it out. And, again, you can still have it all. Like you could realistically raise your kids and go back to college at 40 and get a degree
Sure.
and work. Like, but I think too, like we get into this mode of like thinking that like we have to work really, really hard. We have to make a bunch of money right now. So when we're old, we can sit on our asses. And it's like, well, people are living a lot longer and people can live a lot more healthier, like whenever they're older. So you could still have a great quality of life in a career of your choosing. Maybe I think all of the coaches need to wait to do their coaching until they're like 50 when they've learned some life shit. I would hire a 60-year-old life coach who's seen some shit over the 23-year-old who just moved out of her mom's house.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't come for me. I'm so sorry, coaches. I love you.
Keep doing you, man. You know?
It's hard. It's hard because there's pressure from all sides. But I think we just have to take what we see, take what we can from it, like the coaches and the hustle mindset, there's nuggets of wisdom in all of it. We just can't be so dogmatic and tied to achieving one lifestyle through one way.
I think it's important because I will admit to being very aloof and very impressionable and so easily influenced that, and when you're easily influenced and you have 55 opinions or 55 notions coming at you, you are literally, instead of being like, I don't want anything, you're trying to fit in all 55.
Yeah.
And we're one person, so it's like seeing something, like I still struggle with this because I am obsessed with like hand letterers, with hand letterers. I love them. I also hate them because I watch their videos and it does look easy. And I know that they trained and I know that they worked hard. But when I'm watching the video, I'm forgetting all that, and so, but it's like, I'm trying to get to a point where I can see someone being amazing and being talented and being successful, because that's what they're touting and showing, on social media, and being like, that's great for them. I don't need to want that.
I feel that so much. Yes. I mean, I feel like we both want to do something, like, right? Like we want to have some kind of like business or something. And I do the same thing. I see someone who wrote a self-help book and they got really successful with it. And I'm like, I could do that. Or the podcast, I could do that. And something that I have to tell myself literally every fucking day is that I cannot be upset about not getting what I did not work for. I've only had this podcast for a year.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not even that good at it. So like, why do I want to be so
that could be argued.
And it's like, but I do the same thing. Same as hand lettering. Dude, I don't have an artistic bone in my body, but I'm like, well, it's just a pen. It's just a brush. I could do that. I can't do that.
And then you go to do it and you're like, wow, I suck at this.
I can't do that.
There's a meme that like floats around, and it's like if you were ever in like a gifted and talented class in high school, and then you graduate high school and you realize you're not fucking special at anything, like, and I take that as a very big personal attack because I was in GT and AP and high school was great. I was like, all right, clearly I peaked in high school. I wasn't cool enough to think that I was peaking in high school, but obviously that is what happened.
Yep, I get it. It's so hard. It's so hard. But like I said in this episode that's about to come out tomorrow, I was talking to my friend Lindsay, and I was talking about how like it feels like in your 30s is whenever things really start to get moved around, and we really have to start figuring out who we want to be and how we want to feel and what type of life we want to create for ourselves. And that's where things get really icky, because I think in order to do that, we have to try on a bunch of different hats. We got to try the jobs. We got to try working outside the home, inside the home. Sometimes we have to try different partners or whatever. And it's all, none of it looks very good. Like, cause healing and growth doesn't ever, it doesn't look good.
It's very uncomfortable, you know, but if it's uncomfortable, like you're doing it right.
Yeah.
If it's easy and you're taking the easy way out, you know, which I think I did a lot of times, and it felt like the easy way out, but it just made everything harder.
Yeah.
You know, because none of it felt good.
Yeah.
It was easy, but it didn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's where the practice of like getting really uncomfortably comfortable with self-awareness comes in handy. Being able to read like your gut instinct and sit with it and figure out where it's coming from probably serves us really well. So I guess let's wrap this up, and you know, just the big takeaways I just want to say again.
I feel like there's a lot.
Please. I think it's just important to talk about these things. And if they make people uncomfortable, I'm really sorry. But I'm hoping that if you've been around me long enough, if you've been around Shirley long enough, you'll know that our intentions are only good. And these conversations are uncomfortable for a reason. It's because nobody fucking talks about them. Nobody's talking about these things, you know, not really. So they talk about it in a packaged, I'm going to be vulnerable and authentic kind of way. But to have these long, like weird conversations, I don't see a lot of it. So if you're uncomfortable, I'm very sorry, but we can always keep the conversation going on our individual Instagrams, and we can keep talking about it.
Definitely.
And keep just kind of figuring out where we lie with all of it, because like you said, it's going to look a little bit different for everybody. What's enough for us as individuals is going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. So
that is 100% okay. It shouldn't look the same for everybody, or else we'd all be bored. And
yeah, and that's probably, I mean, that's why we get so uncomfortable and things feel so hard, is probably because we're trying to live somebody else's definition of enough. So, well, thank you very much. And we will just, I don't know. I never know how to end this.
We'll talk again. We'll do the money mindset thing. We'll talk again. And I think that's a really good question to pose out there, and not like one of those stupid questions just to ask, but like, what does enough look like for you?
Yeah.
You know?
Truly. Like, and then, you know, to really think of the feeling, like, how do you want your life to feel? And it doesn't have to be the same for 30 years. Just right now, for 5 years. What's your 5-year feeling? That's a good question.
5-year feeling. Yes.
That's really good.
Plan, feelings.
Yeah.